community to have. And when you hear Chamber of Commerce, it gives some kind of, clout to that community that they have a Chamber of Commerce. But I never really thought about it. I'm not a business oriented person, but we all know business is very important to the health of a community. And could you just explain Chamber of Commerce and what it is?
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And it's funny you say that. So don't feel like you're in the minority there, because when I came on board the chamber going on 6 years ago, I didn't really get what a chamber of commerce was. It almost sounds old fashioned. Chamber of commerce. What is commerce? What is a chamber? Since then, I've been able to really understand it and drive the full value of a chamber of commerce. Today, we represent over 1,300 members across the area within the 5 boroughs and other places, representing 125,000 Queens-based employees. It's kind of a remarkable thing.
So how did you actually get into this position? Oh, I think you got muted.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that question?
So how did you get into this role with the Queens Chamber of Commerce?
Hold on just one quick. So a number of years ago, I worked for a gentleman that was the former retired president of National Grid, a fellow named Bob Cattell. And Mr. Cattell was a great friend and mentor, and we were in the energy business together. And one of the things he thought we ought to do was join chambers of commerce. And so we joined the Brooklyn Chamber, where I became very good friends and still are to this day to the guy that ran it, a fellow named Carlos Susura. And I also met Jack Friedman, my predecessor in Queens. And we did well with our business by being members of the chamber. We were able to learn about it and leverage it for our projects and so on. And then sadly, my predecessor, Jack, passed away in April of 2015. The position became open and I applied for it. And lo and behold, I've been doing it now for, going on 6 years. But it's important to note that the Chamber of Commerce of Queens is one of the oldest in the New York area. We're celebrating our 110th year this year. And from day one, we've educated, we've advocated, and we've networked. And those mean different things to different people. Mm-hmm. For example, way back in the day, the advocacy part was, I have pictures from like the 19-teens, 1913, 1915, of 500 men, mostly male Caucasians, in a hotel in Manhattan, puffing on cigars and black tie and tails, right? So everything's changed in a lot of different ways, right? But today, we're the most diverse county in America. There's over 3,000 counties in America. Queens is the most diverse by far. The only one that comes close is Miami-Dade down in Florida. So we've got a ton of diversity here. And when I get asked the question of, Tom, for the most part, it seems like people get along so much. What do you, ethnicity wise and religion wise and so on. And my comment is they're all living the American dream. At the end of the day, people are all working too hard in Queens County to even think about fighting, right? Jews buy from Christians, Christians buy from Jews, Muslims sell to that. It's an incredible experience that you have to walk through and see to actually believe and understand.
So on that diversity, having all these diverse groups, do you find that their needs from the Chamber of Commerce are different, or do they kind of fall into the same, need?
Absolutely, they are different. Like I said in my introduction and what you had posted online, I am an American of Maltese descent, right? I don't do the Maltese American. It's just not me. But I am third generation, and to help support our businesses, today the Chamber speaks 12 different languages. We always want to encourage folks to learn English, not as a requirement or a demand, but I think it's a good thing that we have the uniformity around that. But I talk a lot about e pluribus unum, right, from our coinage, right, in our legal tender, from many one. And Carmen, I'll tell you, nothing makes me excited when I walk down like Steinway Street now, which has got a huge population of Afghanis and people from Muslim countries. And I'll see a woman, especially in her outfit, right, in her haji, and walking around, and there's a little kid at her arm, wearing like, Western or, Americanized clothing and a Mets hat. And it's
Right.
like that's the generation, right? The
That's New
mom and the
York.
dad. Yeah. The moms and the dads, they always want to have respect and remembrance of their culture, kind of like me and you, right? But you're
Right.
in America now. And so the kid's a Met fan. You gotta love that. I think it's fantastic.
That's the American dream, right?
That's it.
All,
And these folks pursue it every day. I learned a lot by doing this job over the last 6 years, that no matter the culture or the history, some people say, oh, people come here for all the benefits and so on. I don't know, if working 18 hours a day, peeling potatoes, boiling rice, washing dishes is like taking advantage of the system, boy, that's quite an advantage, right? Because these people I know work really, really hard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we could see that with the vibrancy when you go to Queens, the bustling and all the, big and little businesses that are all over Queens. And it's always a discovery when I go there, even having been born and raised here. I'm from Manhattan, and going to Queens, I actually find more of these little gems than, I have to admit, I hope I don't get any, pushback, than Manhattan. Manhattan
Yeah.
kind of, I have to say, gotten a bit generic. I used to have to just go to the village for that kind of family feel, but now Manhattan's really gotten quite generic. And Queens is giving me that, mom and pop and cultural injection.
Yeah. And from a business perspective, too, it's important to note, first of all, the Queen's Chamber has partnered with all the other chambers of commerce and any other group, any other business group that wants to work together. I'm not much in the way of fighting with people.
Right.
Either you're with me or we're not going to be partners, right? So,
Mhm.
we have partnered with a lot of groups that think the same way. And I was asked by the Hotel Trades Hospitality Conference to come into Manhattan along with the Brooklyn Chamber and the New York City Hospitality Alliance a week and a half ago, to go into Midtown to do a press conference at the base of the TKTS, the tickets booth, right in
Right.
Foley Square over there, Father Duffy Square. And the remarkable part about this is, I'll preface my remarks by saying, we are, in fact, all New Yorkers, and we all need to think about being in this together. I'm very friendly and close with the woman that runs the Manhattan Chamber, but I will tell you, Manhattan's in really bad shape. I was there at 11 o'clock in the morning, and except for police, an occasional fire truck, and EMS, I didn't see anybody else. It was deserted. Midtown Manhattan, Times Square, midday, nobody there. So conversely, in places like Queens, I walk around the streets all the time. I make it a habit of eating out in one of the various number of restaurants in Queens County. That's why I'm about 25 pounds overweight. But when you go out and about, I'm starting to see that hustle and bustle. I'm starting to see traffic. I used to dread traffic. I go down the street in Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Astoria, and now I'm like sitting in traffic for like 3 or 4 minutes while a truck delivers, commercial groceries. Home run.
Oh,
That
right.
means the restaurateur has enough business to order what the provisions for his restaurant, right? When I see an airplane, I drive from Long Island to get to work. I drive all over the place. When I look up at LaGuardia or JFK and I see an airplane taking off or landing, I think of the thousands of jobs that flight represents.
Mhm.
Thousands. And I can remember during the COVID, driving by those we're still in the COVID, but in the earlier stages of it, driving by those areas and not seeing a single airplane, and empty parking lots, and no Ubers lined up. So that kind of stuff is a great testament to our resilience here in Queens, and hopefully the vaccinations and everything else will jumpstart that in a big way.
Right. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that, small business and big business. And you would, I'm not a business oriented person, but you would be best, I think, to explain how small and big businesses are crucial. Some people's like, oh, the big business kills a small business can't do this. But I think they're all intertwined, and any business to me is always good business. How do you feel about that? And what can you say to people who are watching who might have a small business and feel scared about a big business, or vice versa?
I totally agree with what you're saying, and I can happily explain that. If you don't mind, I want to give a shout out to two of our viewers I see. One is a dear friend, John Comack, who runs a company called Green Energy Technologies, which is taking New York City and Queens and the area by storm by building electric vehicle charging stations, which is part of my conversation. And another dear friend I've known for forever named Stephanie Funk, who's a retiree of the U.S. Department of State and a college friend from the University of Scranton. Hello, John, and hello, Stephanie, and everybody else who's watching. So
Hello.
small businesses are large, right? At the end of the day, at the very, very end of the day, businesses are the lifeblood of our community, right? When we heard a lot during the COVID about the heroes, the healthcare heroes, I would never, never, never not give them all the props in the world, right? The nurses, the doctors, the folks that cleaned up, right? The janitorial staff, those people were heroes. But it's also important to remember and recognize whether you work for a small, medium, or large business, if you get a paycheck at a company that's dying on the vine, you are an everyday hero and a small business hero to your family when you pay the mortgage, when you pay the rent, when you pay the Con Ed bill. So I think anybody that works ought to be held in regard of, wow, this person's out there trying to do it and grow their business. Other thing I'll tell you too is, we got some flack from some folks, very few, for advocating strongly for Amazon coming to Long Island City a few years ago. I was adamantly in support of that. I listened to other people's perspective, but at the end of the day, when a company wants to come and over the course of 25 years, invest $30 billion with jobs and taxes and building and so on, right? And then at the end of the day, at the end of that 25 years, and over the course of that time, if they meet those guidelines, get a 10% rebate per se in lieu of a $3 billion tax incentive, I will take that deal every single day of the week. Unfortunately, that proposition was hijacked by some ne'er-do-wells and people that didn't really get it or understand it. But at the end of the day, that was huge. And here's why it wasn't just a big business play of the monster that Amazon is. You put 25,000 jobs in Annabelle Basin, Long Island City. You build all those buildings. Those people, young, old, diverse, whatever, $150,000 a piece, those jobs, right? I can vividly remember the woman that runs the Queensbridge Houses Tenant Association, who's become a dear friend. The day that Amazon pulled out, called me and we cried together on the phone, literally, because the chance to get those people in those housing projects, which could have been a salvation for them, that was pulled out. And the sad part about it is all the elected officials and others who shall go nameless in this call have not come up with a plan to reinvigorate that area or the housing projects from that day until today. I'm not telling people to vote against them, but at the end of the day, how can that be? How can you chase out those jobs? And furthermore, Carmen, you think about that, right? I'm an everyday kind of a person, right? I told you, third generation, grandfather and grandmother and everybody else off the boat, right? You start a business and you build that kind of thing with 25,000 people and you fast forward to today. Everybody I know that's a programmer or a coder, no matter what their age is, right? They love coffee. I kept joking around about the average tech geek probably drinks 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day. Take those 25,000 people times 3 cups of coffee. There you go, girl, right? Think about that. That would have been an entrepreneur's dream for Long Island City. Forget about just a Starbucks, but like any kind of business that would serve those people. Sandwich places, right? A Greek restaurant, Pattisti, right? No matter what it could have been,
Right.
could have sold it to those 25 people in a small, micro kind of a way. And we lost that. And when you juxtapose that to the horrible year that 2020 was, you would have thought about cranes and buildings and union guys building those buildings, right? It would have been a fantastic thing. It would have changed the whole dynamic of the COVID if Amazon would have been here. And all you got to do is look 5 hours to the south where it's booming in Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Washington, D.C., because Amazon's going to just build down there. They're going to build regardless of what some ne'er-do-well socialist or otherwise thinks ought to happen. So
Right.
it could have been here. We could have been doing it. I'm off my soapbox now.
I understand where you're coming from. And I think a lot of people have to understand how all businesses work together and what it does for a community, and especially a community where Queensbridge is. I had friends that lived there, and grew up there. And, you know, unfortunately, it's still the same from what I knew 40 years ago.
You bet.
Give or take a little, and it would have, you know, reinvigorated the place, and it would have been near to home for people. So it would have cut down on their transportation costs to go back and forth to work, and it would be right near home. I see where you're coming from, and I do understand the fear that people have of it. And I just think that's why I do this show, is to let people hear both sides and, you know, make their opinion about it. And
Absolutely. If I can make a comment too about one of our local electeds, it's a son of Astoria as well, a really nice Greek guy named Costa Konstantinidis. He is a New York City councilman. He happens to be term limited. This is an example I want to give of a guy that's like thinking outside the box, right? I wasn't necessarily in favor of the closing of Rikers. It's happened, right? So in the spirit of making lemonade out of lemons, Costa sponsored a bill called Local Law 97. It's an energy efficiency bill, right? I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but it forces buildings and so on to get a lot more energy efficient, more with support and some funding versus penalties and fines, except for a long, long time. Costa's developed a plan, working on a plan to re-envision and reimagine Rikers as kind of like, my word, making Rikers Island like the Epcot Center for energy, right? And so with Costa's help, we're actually going to be doing a panel with my friend John Comack and his company and a bunch of others about the greening of Queens, right? I think we have plenty of city bike racks all over the place. I want to have as many electric charging stations in Queens County, right? In addition to the bike racks, right? I want Queens and our energy committee that's led by a couple of really good folks, Marshall Hameson, Steve Owen, Jay Solly, Matt McHugh, to make Queens County, which is the fourth largest city in America, the leader for everything when it comes to CO2 reduction and the greening of our country right here in Queens. The panel we're going to have in April, we'll talk about electric vehicle charging station with the builders, the financiers, the whole 9 yards. It's just one of those things that I think we can lead with in Queens and be an example for the rest of the country.
Beth Bettany will be very happy to hear that.
Yeah, I got to get Beth. I want to get Beth to be part of that, part of that event as well, because Beth loves that stuff, as you know, and my fellow Maltese sister from another mister out in Long Island.
Yeah, she'll be very happy to hear that. So back to the businesses. You know, I hate to say it, but COVID. How did it change how the Queens Chamber of Commerce operates? What did you have to, you know, change from what you knew before when you operated the Chamber of Commerce for your businesses?
So I have like the hardest working group of people you'd ever want to meet. People that have been there on the chamber for a long time, like Jackie Donato. Some recent additions over the last couple of years, my chief of operations, Joanne Prasad, and a host of other ones. Brendan Levy, Jeff Gross, Alejandra Espejo, right? Who else do I want to miss? Neil Wagner. We have the most diverse bunch of people at the chamber than we've ever had, right? So we had our St. Patrick's event with NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea on March 11th, 2020. And at that time, we didn't joke about it, but we kind of said, boy, this might be the last time we hear bagpipes, right? Because it was like a tsunami. It was coming, but nobody knew how big. March 11th was a Wednesday. By that Friday, the writing was on the wall. The first confirmed case of COVID hit New York City. By that weekend, they canceled the St. Pat's Parade, which was the following, the next week on the 17th. We decided to shut down, and we started going virtual on March 16th, and we never looked back. My staff and I were scared, uncertain. What do? We represent these thousands of businesses, tens of thousands of people. What do we do? So my first tack was, I want all my staff, with very little exception, myself included, to reach out and call every single member of the Queen's Chamber. Reach out and say, hey, we're quarantining. We're here. We're, quote, open for business. What do you need? And then in the words, it's been a cliche, but nobody knew what they didn't know. Nobody knew what was next, right? So we talked about masks, we talked about quarantine, we talked about a whole host of things, but there was just general fear. And I cannot tell you, Carmen, how many phone calls I got from folks and emails as well of grown men and women from that day, by the way, until now, literally in tears about losing everything, their businesses, right? They never would have thought if they had a second mortgage on their house or finance via their personal property that they would be closed and have no income at all, losing everything, right? So the chamber basically did maybe one of the most important words of 2020. We pivoted, right? We decided early on, with the support of my 35-member board, who are great partners in all this, and my chairman, Tom Santucci, that we were going to serve anybody that needed it, members and non-members alike. We are a member organization. We live and die by membership dollars, same way as the Maltese Club, right? Which I want to make a pitch for, right? For donation purposes as well. At the end of the day, without that, we die. My feeling was if I went out and got the staff fired up and felt that they were actively and engaged and got the membership involved as what do you need and how can we help? They can always pay the membership dues, right? It was a gamble, and I think it's going to pay off.
Right.
My membership renewals are not down; they're kind of stable. Which in this environment, I'm lucky and blessed, right? We got a bunch of new members due to the hard work of a lot of people that adopted some small businesses, people like Investors Bank and Aurora Contractors and so on. They adopted small business members. We actually grew our membership platform, right? We got some great grant funding in from New York Presbyterian to give out. We got grant funding from the wonderful new owner of the Mets, Steve Cohen, via the borough president, via New York City Small Business Services, via New York City Economic Development, right? The chamber's given out $2 million to people just to say, we're here for you, let us support you, right? But so to answer your question, everything changed and then nothing changed, right? At the end of the day, we had to be there for them. In 2019, Carmen, the chamber did over 320 events.
Wow.
None of them virtual. We ended 2020 with about the same number, like 330, 340. And except for that St. Pat's one, all virtual. Every single one was a Zoom, a WebEx, a Skype, you name it. And we don't charge for those events. I didn't feel like I could actually charge somebody to attend something like that, but we'll be back. We ended the year very, very strong. We're in a great position for further growth, and there's nothing but blue skies. One last comment on that. We talked before the program about business, and you asked the right questions, although you said you're not a business expert, but you're definitely asking the right questions. One of the things I think I'm going to see is, and I'm not just being a cheerleader for America or for New York or for Queens, is that I just got the sense there's a ton of pent up demand for everything. People want to go to the movies, the ball game. They want to go outside and garden. They want to go to Home Depot. They want to go to Lowe's. They want to go out to the street vendor. They want to do things in person. And I kind of see what we call in business, Carmen, a hockey stick, that big giant leap, right, of business in the second and third quarter, leading to a very, very strong 2021. It's my hope and prayer, but I do think it's based on reality. I think people across the country are like, enough.
Right. Yeah, I understand. I had worked for quite some time in a small retail shop, privately owned, a mom and daughter shop. And I spoke to the former owner and she said, oh my gosh, what would I have done during this? How could I have survived? She fortunately just had to retire and close the shop. It wasn't due to, any circumstances. And I really sympathize with these businesses who had to shut down and still stay open and still pay their rent. And I just can't imagine the emotions and that they were going through. But being part of the Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure that gave them some, support and security and stability, knowing they were part of something.
Absolutely. There's this notion in certain parts of our city. It's an effort called cancel the rent. I think about canceling the rent in the terms of what about the poor slob that owns the building, right? And I'm not denigrating the guy that owns the building by saying poor slob, but Carmen, as you know, I come from a long line of building supers, unfortunately not building owners, but building supers, right? And Queens County is not the land of Rockefellers. We're not. We have many, many buildings, 6, 8, 9, 10 residential units above, first floor retail, right? Everybody's been hurting that. But to advocate to have somebody not pay the rent, if you have no means whatsoever, you talk to your landlord. And I've spent the better part of the year kind of being a coach, a priest, a rabbi, a maman, to get people to sit together and talk and say, listen, if you owe $1,000, Mr. Landlord, will you take 7? Will you take 5? Will you take something, right? Because the guy that owns the building, he's got Con Ed, New York City water, New York City taxes, right? How are they supposed to survive? So I just think in many times in our world right now, we have been bereft of common sense and sympathy and humility across the board. Small business owners, small business operators. You know, I talk a lot about our not-for-profits as well. Not-for-profits have gotten hammered during this, right? Places like the YMCA, I know them personally, have gotten hurt because their programs, their in-person programs got canceled. If they had swim programs to teach inner city kids how to swim, done, over, right? That's why we have a very, very active and robust not-for-profit committee, which I want the Maltese Club to join and be part of, because we help them advocate for not only aid, but programming and so on. So those are the kind of things that I really want to make sure that we stay in front of as we exit this COVID period and move on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people have to see this is all full circle. You know, it's not just one person in this being affected. It's a full circle. And I hear that a lot, you know, like the landlord's this, the tenant this, or, you know, it goes both ways. You know, everybody's got bills to pay. And if the landlord can't pay his bills for operating, then where your business is, it's going to fail as well because of the upkeep.
Absolutely.
Totally agree with that. I know you just shared a video with me, and just for everybody, I'm still not 100% savvy with Zoom, but I'm going to try to share this beautiful video that
thank you.
Tom shared with me. And did you want to say who helped produce this one?
I would love to. So again, and the way to get morale up and get people engaged and excited about things in general during a very, very difficult time. I asked one of our long-serving team members, employee, Brendan Levy, who I know his whole family. His daughter Emma had just graduated from Oswego, and of course there wasn't a ton of jobs available. So I asked him to ask her to get involved and said, got a couple of ideas, right? Can you put together a video that I want to share to be uplifting? I want to start it off, not to get too micro about it, but start off in kind of like a quiet, like, you know, thinking kind of a what's going to happen next type of thing, and then end it positive, because at the end of the day, as in most things in life, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this thing went out thanks to a fellow named Greg Hoffman, who knew and knows Ray Romano. We got Ray Romano. We put together this thing, and I could not be more proud of my team, the folks that are in it, and Queens in general. And I'm really happy, Carmen, that you're willing to play it for us.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to get it going right here, everyone. It's a beautiful video focused on Queens, and I'm going to share it right now. It's just about 3 minutes long. Oh, here we go. Is it on, Tom?
I don't see it on the sharing of the screen.
Okay, I'm getting it right now.
There you go.
To Queens, where diversity is written in our DNA, with the faces of every nation a few train stops apart.
Let's be honest, Queens, we never thought that we were going to miss our morning commute, transferring at Roosevelt Avenue, grabbing a coffee at the bodega, the hustle, the rush, the churro lady. But what happens when all of it changes? When we're down 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, we gotta believe. So now we cheer for our new heroes, our small business owners, the backbone of our economy, as they head into the front lines, wearing masks and gloves to to protect us from an invisible enemy so we can still feed our families. We adapt our hustle to the confines of our homes because nothing stops progress. No, not even our kids. You know, in the city that never sleeps, we all find new ways now to connect to the people we love. Finding an appreciation for the things that we once took for granted. We all live in neighborhoods that bring their own flavor to the melting pot, but share the same desire to dream big, work hard, and pull together in times of need. Everybody loves a comeback.
We've risen before and we'll do it again, because Queens stands strong together. From all of us at the Queens Chamber of Commerce, let's get back to work.
Hi, Ray Romano here. I want to say hi to the entire team at the Queens Chamber of Commerce. All of you who are working real hard to try to support these small businesses in Queens that are about to reopen and try to get back on their feet. To just spread the message to everybody in Queens to let's get out there and visit our local pizzeria, the deli, the bodega, the bagel store. Oh, I miss the bagels. But anywhere, the restaurants, you know, no matter where you are, Sunnyside, Astoria, my hometown, Forest Hills, Jamaica, the Rockaways, let's do what we all do best, what I know Queens does the best, and that's support each other.
Hello, my name is Tom Gretsch, the President and CEO of the Queens Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the staff of the Queens Chamber, all of our board of directors, all of our members, and all businesses in the great borough of Queens, thank you for your support, past, present, and future. We've been around since 1911, and we intend to be around for 100 more years, serving businesses large and small in the great borough of Queens. Thank you.
All right, that was great.
Thank you so much for showing it. We're very, very proud of that and the folks that helped put it together.
All right, let me get out of this share. There we are. I'm back.
You're a pro.
Scared I didn't see my face there. That was a beautiful video. I love that ending with the Mets. And even though brought up as a Yankees fan, I just love them both ways, Mets and Yankees. Or New
Good
York
for us.
about that. Yeah, so I also wanted to talk about your Maltese connection, since this is, you know, coming out of the Maltese Center. And if you want to, you know, talk about your Maltese connection, and I know how you like how I pronounce your last name and how others pronounce your last name too, right?
Yeah, I found it interesting that you don't say Gretsch, you say Grek.
Yeah, I say Grek.
Yeah, it's funny. I was always, from growing up, it was Gretsch, right? So
Yeah.
So on my dad's side, my grandfather Charles came from Malta, and he married a woman named Rose Vella,
Mhm.
who I know was born in Mallorca. So they were both Maltese, and they came
Mhm.
here to raise a family, and they had 3 kids. My dad, who's 88, George Charles, and my uncle Joseph Gretsch, and my aunt Mary Ann. The other 2, Joseph and Mary Ann, have since recently deceased. God rest their souls. But you know, at an early age, I can very vividly remember going to my father's place of birth, which was an apartment right on Astoria Park. And he always used to joke that he was the baby of the family. And like many at that time, he says he didn't have a real bed to sleep in until he joined the U.S. Navy, because it was a small apartment. There was a pull-out couch, and that's what it was like, right? So my grandparents, it's funny, this morning on occasion of this thing, I made my wife and I eggs, tomatoes, and scallions in a recipe that I can remember something similar my grandmother and grandfather making. But we had a great respect and understanding of the Maltese culture. I know my grandparents went back at least once or twice after they came here. My aunt, my younger brother Robert, travels back and forth on occasion. I've never been. I was supposed to go last summer with my family as a special trip, but of course, COVID changed all that. On my mom's side, also from Astoria, German and Austrian, and so I married a wonderful Polish and Italian gal from Greenpoint. So we're all mutts together, right? So it's a wonderful assembly
Maltese
of
are
mutts.
already mutts anyway because
Yes.
of history. So
Absolutely. But on the history side, it was interesting because, like I said before, my grandfather was a building super in Manhattan. My dad climbed telephone poles for a number of years. I am the first in my family to go to college, which in those days, going back 40 years, was a big deal.
Mhm.
Still is in many cases, right? But I remember I went to the University of Scranton in Pennsylvania, where I made some lifelong friendships, and it was a unique thing because Grek or Gretch, I didn't know anybody Maltese except for my own family. There was nobody I learned that was Maltese. The only person I thought may have been, I was a baseball fan, was the player named Bobby Grich, Grich, but I never found out whether or not he was. But there was nobody to know or meet. And I think what the Maltese Club is doing of Astoria is doing a fantastic job of keeping that culture alive. I've been there at least once or twice over the last couple of years to stop in and say hello. I definitely want to go over there more and further explore not only my own personal culture, but how I can help your organization. I'd really like to try to do that.
yeah, we're all learning how to, manage through these new times, and it's exciting. I mean, if it wasn't for the challenges, I would never have made this program and meet all these people and introduce Maltese presence to the rest of the community abroad and here in America. So it has, the challenges have had some, charged some new ways of thinking that otherwise we wouldn't have thought about and have become beneficial. I have a question here from Anita Volpe.
Okay.
She said, nice work. As a director on my local Chamber of Commerce, I understand the great work that you do in order to give a voice and relevance to small business owners. The work that the Chamber does is especially critical in light of the challenges the pandemic has wrought in our business communities. Can you expand on how you continue this support with social distancing restrictions? Let's see. Yeah, that's the end of the question.
Great. So on an ongoing basis, we've not done any in-person yet. We hope to, by the end of March, early April, do some in-person. But again, it's an extension of the model. It's an extension of what we've always done. Educate, advocate, and network, right? But again, as I described before, the way we did it in 1913, 1914 to today was different. And the way we did it in 2019 to 2021, again, is different. I got to credit my staff for making it pretty effortless, right? Doing the Zoom meetings, WebExes, whatever it is. I will also tell you that nothing in my mind, nothing takes the place of a smile, a handshake. And people say with the eyes, you can see the smile of somebody's heart and soul through the mask, whatever else. But nothing to me beats a smile. Nothing beats a handshake. An occasional hug of an old dear friend, right? And a fist pump in an in-person setting. And so that's why we've been so incredibly supportive and adamant about getting the vaccination thing out. I'm heartened to see that we are really building upon that in the city and in our country about getting everybody and anybody vaccinated so we can get past this point. But the way we do it, and by the way, Anita, thank you so much for your question. I appreciate that. We got to just keep pushing ahead. It's a really tough time, but we've got to keep making sure we support our small businesses in the past and also now.
Great. And if anyone has questions, I just want to remind you, you can come live or send it through the chat group, and I will try to keep my eyes open for it. And earlier, you had a message from Stephanie, and she said, hi, Gretch, love your message. So proud of you.
He's a great friend and a great person.
Yeah. And when you were talking about that egg mixture, I hope I don't butcher it, but it is a traditional dish that they do make in Malta and still today. And I'm worried if I butcher the word, but it's barbagliot or barbagliata.
Really? Wow.
So it's like an omelet of scrambled onions and tomatoes, or like you said, scallions and maybe some herbs. And
Yep.
yeah, it's a comfort food. And I remember my mom making it and the kids falling in love with it. I never quite get it just like my mom. So there's always something when someone else makes it, it tastes so much better.
Yeah, it's funny. The other dish I can remember very well was, I'm not gonna, I don't know the name, but if I describe it, maybe
Yeah.
Carmen, you or anybody else could help. But my grandmother getting these little small, they weren't killies, they were really small little fish, and she'd make this batter with egg and breadcrumbs, and then literally grab these little fish and make a ball out of it, and then pat it down like a burger and like pan fry it. And it was the most, as a little kid, you're like, ooh, it's gross. It's a whole fish. But the thing was no more than a half an inch to an inch long. And it was unbelievable. What am I talking about? You know?
Okay, so those little fish are called namusa, which
Okay.
is, it means like tiny fish, like almost like a mosquito, something tiny. And there are these fish patties, and my dad would make them, and I absolutely love them. And yes, they would be breaded, and sometimes even tomatoes and onions put it in and fried up. And actually, I've gone to Queens to get this fish in Flushing, or sometimes in Chinatown here in Manhattan. They would sell these little fish so I could make these patties, and I am craving for them now that you've mentioned it. But yeah, it's called namusa, this little fish.
Yeah, I mean, my grandmother, my Maltese grandmother, Rose, passed away. And by the way, my daughter Ashley Rose is named after her, Ashley Rose Gretsch. She passed away, I guess it was like, in 1979, and she was old at the time, so I haven't had that food in probably 45 years. But the notion of it and seeing it fry up in a pan in her apartment, and the smells that would emanate from that, and I'm sure, like your family, fishing was always a big deal.
Oh yes.
My grandfather would come out from Astoria when we first moved to Long Island, and we would go out to like Captree or somewhere and go fishing. And even the worst fish that other people call garbage fish, like a bluefish, he would make it and it would be spectacular.
Well, see, Tom, when things open up again and we're able to gather safely, you have to come to one of our Layla Maltias, where it's all things Maltese, and we'll have this food that you are craving, and you'll feel like you're back with Nana again.
Yeah, my Nana.
Yes. And you see how food always brings everybody together, and that's what Queens has. And
you're so right.
The businesses that you have in your Chamber of Commerce, and we all know it's food that, helps people identify with their home. Taste and smell is such a strong connection, and you of all are, you have all this at your fingertips now in Queens, right? With all the different ethnicities and tastes there. So we see how important it is to have these businesses thrive so people can enjoy their home, their identity, no matter what generation they are. It passes through a simple thing as food.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let anyone know if they were ready for any more questions. I think we're about done. If you, Tom, have anything else to say to our audience, it will be recorded and will be on YouTube for replay.
Great. I'd love to be able to share that within my own Queen's Chamber YouTube channel on a personal level. But I also want to say this to your viewers, and when I get to the club, I want to do this as well. I know I have long lost family on the Vela side, right? So again, my grandfather was Charles Gretsch, and he had Joseph, George, and Marianne. On my grandmother's side, Rose Vela Gretsch. The Vela side, I know Vela is a very common name, Maltese name, but if anybody out there ever that's watching this program or knows any Vellas that were married to a Gretsch, I gotta believe somewhere we can make that connection. I do know either somebody moved away or there might have been a family disagreement or something ridiculous, right? 50 years ago. And the Vellas stopped talking to the Gretches for whatever reason.
Not
I'm here to-
unusual.
Yeah, you know what? Like dumb things happen. But I'm here
Right.
to say in 2021, if I've got any relatives out there, especially wealthy ones, no, just kidding. If I've got any relatives out there on the Vela side, I would love to reconnect and have you meet my family. I have an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old and my beautiful wife, and maybe rekindle some of that stuff just for old time's sake. I've been reluctant to do the 23andMe or the Ancestry.com, the DNA search, because I'm just not sure I want to do that. But on a virtual way with a video request, if anybody out there, any of our viewers that are Maltese like Nikki or Anita or you, Carmen, let me know. And then in closing, all I want to say is thank you so much for this opportunity. You put me in great company with Beth last month, last month, and I'm happy to help support this and your organization. I just want to say thank you.
And you just got a comment from John. Yeah, he already said, my best friend is Bob Vella.
Is that right? Wow.
And if you know the village your family might be from, that also helps.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't. I mean, I know it from my brother who was supposed to be on this, but I don't see him. Either way, I can find out. If anybody has any curiosity,
yeah,
just
if you know the
your-
village and the island, you know, it's a small population, and it can get you connected pretty
Yep.
faster than you think.
Yep.
Yep. All right. So thank you so much. And in 2 weeks' time, on Sunday, March 21st, our next guest will be Anita Volpe, who was also a guest here. And she is the vice president and administrator of a community hospital in New York State. And she will touch upon another industry that was crucial during COVID, as was yours with businesses, and she with the health industry. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. And I look forward to our next program on Sunday, March 21st.
So give us a goodbye in Maltese so I can remember it.
Oh, goodbye. I usually say saha, means like to your good health.
There you go. Saha.
Yeah, saha, to your good health. I know Anita and Nikki must be, saying something as they are, from Malta and saying, "Oh, Carmen, you should have said this." Would message me.
You know what? Saha works for me. So until we see each other again,
That's a nice, easy one for us.
very easy. Carmen, thanks again, and Saha
Thank
to
you.
everybody.
Saha.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.